Welcome to another edition of From the Frontlines. I'm joined today by James McNeely, principal at Guerin Catholic High School. Hey, James.
Tammy, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Hey, so it's been a couple months since we spoke last, and at that point, you guys were having to pivot a little bit from 100% in-person learning to a blended model. How is that going?
Yeah, I think it's going really well as far as the blended model. It's tricky to do, and I can say that it's a lot of work for our teachers in particular. It was really hard for them, and they said they all felt like first year teachers again to try to ramp back up to be able to make that happen. But they were all stars, and they did a great job. We were lucky, I think, that we have the technology to do this and do this really well. And our kids who are on within the blended learning model, even the kids that were at home were still checking in with video conferencing with Zoom at the beginning of each period, getting together, checking in with the teachers, sometimes staying on the entire period and being able to interact. And saw some really cool things where the teachers were using breakout rooms and actually having the kids at home interact just as they would in class and be a part of class. So I feel like we did a really good job with it. We anticipated having to pivot, during the summer, and we tried to make some investments in technology to be able to do that. I'm really glad we did, and I think we've really made the best of the situation.
Well, I know that being a smaller school actually has its benefits. We know that Sheridan and Hamilton Heights are in full-time, 100% in person. Is that a goal for you guys to get back there?
It is definitely a goal for us. Yeah, we talked about our guiding principles that really we want to use to make the decisions, going through this pandemic, and one of them is that we feel like education best happens in person, and we feel like that's where our kids can. We really view our teachers, I guess, let's start there, as more than just purveyors of knowledge. Our teachers are there to mentor our kids, to really get to know them and help them interact with their classmates and do rich things like have classroom discussions and debates and all sorts of things that are just really important besides just here's the knowledge, do the paper or do the worksheet or whatever that is. So yes, our goal is going to be to continue to try to get back to every day in person, and we just surveyed our community just last week, and we're in the process right now to determine exactly when we'll go back to every day in person. And our plan is to stick with that as long as we can until we don't feel like it's going to work for a while, and then we may have to pivot again, and then we may have to pivot again. But we just met with our medical advisory team this week, and they were saying, we don't know when this pandemic is going to end. And even on the long end, people are saying it could be years. It could be 3 years we're dealing with this. And so, just thinking about that down the road, I mean, I anticipate that, we may have to pivot several more times as we work our way through this pandemic.
What are the metrics that you need to see in order to get them back 100% again?
Yeah, great question. We're certainly looking at those county metrics that they're putting out. The number of cases per 100,000, and then the positivity rates. Keeping those in the single digits and not creeping above 10. We're certainly looking at those. Internally, we've really identified two metrics that we want to continue to monitor. One is the percent of our population that's testing positive, and so really when that gets above 1%. That starts to grow quickly, and really then it goes hand in hand with that second metric. And the second metric is the number of kids that are quarantined because of those positive tests, and due to close contact, that can grow very, very quickly. So 1% is probably going to result in close to 20% of your student population being quarantined, both for COVID and other illnesses that pop up and things like that. So we're going to monitor those two things. We want to keep the number of kids in our population at home or missing or ill or quarantined below 20%. And we'd like to keep our number of positive cases below 1%. And if we start to creep above either of those two metrics, then we're going to consider, at that point, pivoting.
Yeah. You guys happen to have a big, beautiful campus. I'm sure you've made use of that while the weather's been nice, but it looks like we may be getting into the colder months. You mentioned flu and cold season. Are you worried about us entering these colder months and what that might look like?
Yeah, I think across the board, everybody is. we're really going into an unknown. We started this pandemic, at least in the United States, sometime around March, and so we really didn't get to experience cold and flu season along with this. A doctor, local pediatrician on our medical advisory team, told us this week, in looking at the history of other viruses that are out there, is they do tend to spike between Halloween and Easter. It's that November to April time frame that really we see. Doctors' offices will tell you they're busier. That's when kids are sick, and that's when things happen. And so certainly I think we'd be a little naive to think that this COVID-19 is going to be different than anything else. We probably are going to see more cases during that time, and we've got other things like college kids that'll be home here pretty soon.
Oh yes.
Siblings have kids in college. Most of them are coming home around Thanksgiving. So there's going to be a period of time where that's going to be reintroduced back into our population. So certainly we've got to keep all those things in mind. And for us, I mean, we desire to go back 100% in person, but I think taking all those things in mind, we've got to be prepared to pivot again, and just continue to monitor those metrics to see, what the safest, what the safest decisions are, what the safest way to continue to educate our kids.
Thinking ahead to the winter months, are you still planning to have winter athletics?
We are planning on having winter athletics. I think a lot of the schools right now continue to wait on the IHSAA to put out guidelines as far as what those sports are going to look like. Obviously, volleyball is the only fall indoor sport, and so we had some good precautions with that. But the nature of volleyball is different than basketball, different than wrestling, right? It's just, even though it is a team sport and you're together, you're not nose to nose with people, and you're not guarding them, and so it is a little bit different. And so, yeah, we're going to have precautions in place, and we're going to have to be vigilant about, keeping the virus out and being pretty proactive and making some pretty safe choices. If for some reason we do have cases on those teams.
Well, it sounds like you got your arms around things now, and we congratulate you, and we wish you the best of luck. And hopefully we're going to check back in with you in a couple months, and everything's going to be fine.
That's great, Tammy. I tell you, I had a principal friend of mine say that he feels like 50% of the people think he's a genius, and 50% think he's an idiot, and 50% are probably right. So I don't know. We do the best we can with the information that we have. This is uncharted territory for every one of us who's trying to run a school right now. So my prayers go out to my fellow administrators in the area schools. We're all doing the best we can and trying to do right by keeping everybody safe and balancing that with the health and well-being and educational responsibility we have with these kids.
Well, that's all we can ask. James McNeely, principal for Guerin Catholic High School, thank you again, and good luck.
Thanks, Dan.